if we could use our existing Perl test more somehow. I think I actually kind of covered this already. Oh, no, the second point here. So they're hard to install, but secondly, if you have a different process emitting tap within your tap emission stream, how do you merge them, and even merge them in a way that the test numbers don't conflict? That's getting hard again, and that's getting hard on me, the developer, and I don't want that either. So point number 3, not have to re-implement lots of test more. Again, this is basically for me implementing my side of this. I could certainly write a whole bunch of JavaScript side test more functionality. I don't want to. So with point number 2, this leads to a fairly simple solution. Let's just use test more, and let's call it from the JavaScript itself. How do we do that? We're going to have a test function in your Perl side to start up Phantom.js and set it up. Then we're going to have JSON over the pipe to invoke functions given arguments from the JavaScript. So I'm going to sort of bundle everything up into JSON and then execute that in Perl. All the tests are wrapped in a subtest because you're only going to call one function, one test. That basically means this has to be a subtest. And this JSON over a pipe thing is just my sort of first implementation. I would actually love to get it working as sort of a side channel WebSocket communication. That's just something that I haven't gotten to yet. And if I get there, I'm hoping to have it be transparent to you guys and wouldn't affect any tests you'd write from now till then. All right, so I already showed you a non-dynamic example. Let's look at a dynamic example. So this is a very similar template. We start out with P, ID name, Leela. Except now, as soon as we start up the browser, the name, so we get element by name, and set the inner HTML to Bender. So Bender takes over, which is what Bender does. And how do we test that this works? Well, we can still run those same tests we had before, and they still pass on the Perl side. The original template says Leela. And yet, when we run this, here I've just got a phantom OK method that I've packed into your test more object. And it can execute this, which is JavaScript. This is a here doc ending here. I've been told that it doesn't quite work because of the highlighting. Whatever, get over it. And I have this funny command here, perl.is. So I've implemented a function perl. When you pass it arguments, it bundles those up and runs the command on the host. The first argument has to be either unqualified function name, which will execute in the current package, or a fully qualified function name, which will execute that function. I then provide a little shortcut helpers that you can bundle up the common ones that you would want to use. So I have already told it that is really test more is. And you have ways that you can do that yourself. And as I'll show you here, I don't need a dash because we're not doing anything like that. Test successful. So clearly, if I had sent Leela as text, it would not be Bender, and therefore it works. And if I had a few more minutes, I would show you a failing test, but just trust me, it's really doing that. So let's think of a more interesting example. Let's say MomCorp is coming up with an annihilation machine, and of course the boys have been tasked with coming up with its targeting system. They come up with a little web app here that just implements a simple button, and it shows who's been marked for annihilation. And when you click on it, it runs this function here and returns a new result. So you have the current target number, 0. We have our targets in order, and we cycle through them, every click and get the next value and assign it to the input button. So this is a slightly different construction now because I'm using an external script. But it's basically the same stuff. So here, what I've done is I've built a little test function on the JavaScript side. It evaluates in the page's context, get element by ID, clicks that button, and then does marked.value, returns that to the phantom side, once you read the documentation on Phantom, this will make sense. The page request is done in sort of a sandboxed context. I can't talk today. So you have to do this page.evaluate to get into the page's context. You return the value out to there, it returns the value out to you, and I call this function now 4 times, and I cycle through Bender, Fry, Leela, and Bender again, who is not very happy that he ends up being the target. As I promised before, I was so happy that this was working that I didn't want to just keep it in the Mojolicious world. I'm a big proponent of people being able to use Mojolicious in sort of non-web or non-Mojo contexts. And if I'm going to really promote that, I have to live it myself. So if Dancer's your thing, and yes, this is a horrible, horrible Dancer app. I slurp in that non-template template and just serve it back out the only way I do, because I don't actually use Dancer. But this worked and functions and whatever. I'm sure someone could have helped me write a better one, but I did this very quickly. And you'll notice that I can run basically the same script as my old original dynamic test. But I've added one more test role. So test Mojo with roles is a little wrapper around test Mojo that I wrote to be able to apply role tiny roles, because we were getting this weird proliferation of people subclassing test Mojo in order to add their one little method. Well, that doesn't scale very well. So I already had that laying around, so I just wrote test Mojo role PSGI, which does the mangling of the requests and responses. And sure enough, this one, and I want to just demonstrate that one too, because I'm proud of it. Answer.t. And sure enough, that one passes as well. So that one loaded up a Dancer app, mounted it inside of a basically anonymous Mojolicious app, dispatches to it, and tests it via Phantom.js. And again, all you need to do to make this work is have the Phantom.js executable in your path. So, hooray. Again, if you want to follow along, we've got a link to MetaCpan, a link to Phantom.js, and a link to Mojolicious website. You can find us on hashmojo on irc.perl.org. I am jberger, and I'm around a lot, so just come ping me, and I'm happy to talk about it. Thank you very much. Do I have time for questions, or have I used up my time? All right, do I have any questions?
So that works with any PSGI app?
Works with any PSGI app, yep. It wasn't Dancer specific in any way, it just PSGI.
And you're doing that by actually loading a whole Mojo app and then mounting the PSGI app?
To the slash route, yeah, so it,
You have to have the whole Mojo stack in order to do this.
it would come, you would have it anyway. Mojo stack is very tiny. It's what is it, 8,000 lines of code? It's easy to install, not a big deal. Anyone else? No? Well, thank you again.